Hello, my name is APowers. I chose Ireland as my culture of focus for this presentation. One of the main reasons was while traveling to Ireland on my honeymoon in 2012, I became very interested in the history and evolution of their business industry. Throughout my presentation, I will show original photos from our trip. A few of my focuses today will be on the Irish history, looking at the cultural traditions, the economic state of Ireland, and also several of their business practices. Finally, I will focus on the different communication styles within Ireland. Ireland came to be about 10,000 years ago when the Celts arrived as farmers. When we think of Ireland, or at least most people do, they initially think of St. Paddy's Day and maybe even a leprechaun looking for a pot of gold. St. Patrick actually came to Ireland in 400 AD, converting the culture to Christianity at that time. Still today, the Catholic heritage runs pretty deep within the family values. There's beautiful large cathedrals and old Celtic crosses that still stand today. One of my most favorite tours while we were in Ireland were the old cathedrals and just the beautiful artwork, thinking how many hundreds of years ago people built these churches and just how they've preserved the heritage. Ireland is rich in history thanks to a melting pot of many cultures and religious influences. Their history has been plagued by native Irish people being constantly conquered and resettled by warring invaders. Over the years, through these trials, the economy has followed suit with a similar pattern. Today, the main language of Ireland is English. However, Gaelic is still spoken in about a third of the rural country. In a 2016 census, it was still documented that nearly 26,000 Irish still speak Gaelic. It's no surprise that the Catholic religious holidays are very important and celebrated with family. Businesses in Ireland will generally close for an extended period of time and over major holidays for Christmas and Easter. As I previously mentioned, the economic roller coaster has made the conservative Irish culture strong and resilient. In the 1980s, young Irish had to immigrate to the United States and other parts of Europe to continue working. This was definitely one of the lower times in the recent economic history. However, in 2013, the European government and the International Monetary Fund sent Ireland a whopping $113 billion in bailout just to help these businesses get back on their feet and natives to return to Ireland. Dublin was well known and has continued to grow to be the business center for Ireland. Many large technological companies have settled there, as well as several other businesses have set their headquarters here. One of the main reasons are the low taxes and the great housing market. Companies that you may notice that have set their headquarters up in Dublin include Google, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook. Also, many pharmaceutical and medical supply companies are here. I know we have several people in our class here that work daily within the medical field, so I thought that might be relevant. Companies like Cardinal, GSK, Merck, and Covidien. Several others as well. Large corporations are generally drawn, like I mentioned, because of the taxes, but also the hardworking Irish employees. The Irish are very dedicated to their work and are very trusting and reliable. Waterford Crystal is another corporation that is well known for their beautiful art and mainly different crystal pieces. Oftentimes we see these around the holidays and in stores like Hallmark or quaint little crystal shops. One of the cool things while I visited Ireland was that we were able to take a tour. Initially, I thought this would just be a history of the company, but at that time, the plant was in full production and we were able to walk through. Literally, I could have reached my hand out and touched any one of these machines in the molding area. Also, we were able to see men firing the crystal, forming it from just the beginning. I had no clue that Waterford Crystal actually played a large role in making the NFL championship trophies and other Super Bowl trophies. One of the most well-known industries in Ireland outside of these big corporations is agriculture. Most of the farms are full of lush green grass with sheep, some cattle, and chickens. The one thing that is different than the Midwest here in America is there's not much for grain farming. The land is green and absolutely beautiful, but mostly it's livestock instead of the grain farming. Tourists rely heavily on the bed and breakfast industry. I will refer to these as B&Bs throughout the rest of my presentation. As a tourist there, my husband and I landed in Dublin. We rented a car at the airport and then toured the country. We had no reservations ahead of time. Definitely did not stay in any hotels, as those are nearly $400 to $500 a night, whereas a B&B will run closer to anywhere from 50 to 75 euros, which there was definitely a different currency difference at the time, but significantly cheaper, especially when we were there for 2 weeks. Generally, we would walk up to a business that had a sign that they were a B&B. Some would show they had vacancies, others you just knock on the door and ask. But typical with the Irish culture, they were very welcoming, and if they were booked, they would sometimes even call their neighbor or friend or would direct us on where we might be able to stay. There wasn't a night that we had an issue finding lodging. The owners of these B&Bs would oftentimes chat with us about our day, our overall travels, and then give great tips and insight on where to visit in their area. They truly take pride in their little counties, their cities, and the country overall. Now studying the different communication styles for this project, I look back and recognize many of the experiences we had and are able to relate them. Folks would greet you with a handshake, and definitely direct eye contact was very important. Oftentimes they'd rather have face-to-face conversation and sit down over a cup of coffee or tea. They're very witty and philosophical in their stories and love adventure. Sometimes you would wonder if it was a tall tale. Many of the businesses throughout Ireland are family owned, which makes the relationship that much more important. They're smaller and they really trust. Building that initial sense of trust with each person was important. And in the larger businesses, you end up working directly with a secretary to coordinate any meetings. This would be that face-to-face contact. Traditional meetings, if you got into a business or organization in Ireland, will take place during the normal business hours of 9 a.m. and 5:30 p.m. Rarely you'll ever meet at an Irish office. You would generally meet at a neutral territory. What I thought was interesting is these are generally restaurants or even a pub. In America, we like to make quick decisions, we react on the fly, and we want things done right now, or as I like to say, yesterday. Working internationally in Ireland, this would definitely present a challenge. Many business decisions are slow and conservative, and looking back on the roller coaster of their history, I definitely can see how their economy has shaped these decisions. I think about any decision they would make today, any money they would spend. They honestly would have to look forward and almost try to predict the future on what might happen. Formal business agreements are usually discussed in person at these meetings, but then will be followed up with a written contract with 2 signatures. Informal matters or decisions are just discussed verbally and nothing in writing. It would not be uncommon for the Irish businessmen to pick up the phone to coordinate an in-person meeting rather than sending an email. All meetings and face-to-face interactions will begin and end with a firm handshake. Like I mentioned previously, even at the B&Bs, this was very common. You would make a payment and they would shake your hand, or you would take the key for the evening and they'd take and shake your hand. Before you would leave, you would coordinate your checkout and everything ended with a handshake. I see the communication styles of Ireland to be equivalent to the business in the 1990s in America. Meetings and gatherings were face to face, and generally you communicated over the phone instead of, as I call it today, hiding behind a computer or chatting, sending emails. The respect and the genuine intent of every meeting makes everyone feel welcome in their culture. In conclusion, I respect the country of Ireland for their strength and all of their trials and hardships. Their strong cultural influence of the Catholic religion and their core family values show through their communication and their business. I hope you too will be able to experience this slower paced, conservative culture of lush green land one day. Please feel free to let me know if you have any questions or comments. I appreciate any feedback, and I thank you so much for your time and look forward to learning from everyone's cultural presentations.